Hello, hello. Welcome to this not exactly book review as it is a talk about a certain book. Trying to get the cross in. I just got this cross the other day, so it's Romans 15:13. I've seen that Hobby Lobby for a long time, and I wanted to make sure I get it and put it on my wall. But it is C.S. Lewis's The Great Divorce. Now, this book I've had for a while, but of course I didn't bring it with me on deployment or anything like that, so I kept everything here. But now that I'm back, and it was brought up again, like in this church I visit here, and I was like, okay, so I will read it. So, I reread it, and now that's what this video is about. Discussing what the book is and everything else. What is the book? This book is about kind of like fantasy, of course, fantasy, C.S. Lewis. But he's not always known just for fantasy, just FYI. But he is kind of like in this town or whatever else like that, and they're going on a bus trip to a place. And I'm like, okay. And they go on this bus trip all the way, and through like, it's like traveling up in the air through like a whole bunch of cliffs and everything, and they get to heaven. And they're visiting heaven. And he looks around and everything, but realizes it is very difficult to walk and hurts very badly to walk because he looks at himself and he realizes everyone else around him is like transparent, like ghosts almost. Yet, you have other type ghosts coming from like a mountain way, and they're shining and everything. They're also kind of transparent and everything, but they're more solid than they are. So he always refers to them as the solid versus them the ghosts. But why is he in heaven? What is this all about? What is the whole thing? Well, it's just a discussion of like, well, hell and heaven in a lot of ways. That's what thing is about. Like the town that he flew out of and everything was hell. And yes, it's a Christian book, if you obviously can't tell. But there's a lot of interesting things with this, with the different characters or different showings of characters and everything with this. It took me about a week to reread it because it's a short book. It's like only 100 something pages. It's like over 140 pages, like 146 pages, so it's not long. But you got different things of people going up to heaven to kind of give a view and to see what it is and everything. But here's the catch. It's just kind of like, yeah, they can stay. They can stay in heaven. But the problem is that they can't go back to hell if they choose to stay. But the thing is, they gotta want to stay. Because you can't take anything back from hell with you. I mean, you can't take anything from heaven back to hell with you. So you can't... Yeah, that makes sense. So, which is something that happens all throughout the thing. There's different chapters, but I'll go through each of the characters throughout it. The first characters, he meets on the bus and everything, but he kind of sees them later on. First one is a big man talking to a solid guy, and seemingly they know each other. Because the solid people, like people who have accepted Christ as Lord and are eventually, in heaven and everything, they're coming to meet all these people. Because they're trying to convince them you want to stay and let go of hell because you can't take anything with you. Actually, I want to read that first portion. All right. No, that's not it. Well, actually, I do want to read that, though, but this is just a part of the thing. If we insist on keeping hell or even earth, we shall not see heaven. If we accept heaven, we shall not be even to retain even the smallest and most intimate souvenirs of hell. And right here, in a forward thing, no, there is no escape. There is no heaven with a little hell in it, because you say, that stuff like, with every heaven, there's a little hell, and stuff, and that's not the case. No plan to retain this or that of the devil in our hearts or our pockets. Out Satan must go. Every hair and feather, by George MacDonald. He's actually important for this. But these two guys, they know each other. He calls him the big man, and he's talking to this guy who seemingly murdered someone. And the guy he murdered is there, but he's talking like, why are you here when you murdered someone, and I'm down there in hell and everything else? And he's like, all that doesn't matter. All of it is everything because I repented at the end. of his life, whether he was execution, whatever happened to him, but he repented of everything. And he gave his life to Christ, and that's why he's there. Whereas this guy, he's talking about, oh, I have rights. I'm a better man than you because I don't do this. Not in that type of way, but he's just kind of like, I'm not going to be treated a certain way. I deserve something in that type of thing. I have rights. And the guy's like, if you don't deserve anything, I don't deserve anything, because if I deserved my rights that I should have, I'd be, in hell. I wouldn't be here. But because of God's grace and I accepted it, I came thing. But the guy wants to have like heaven on his own terms, which I don't think about is a lot what this book is in a way. I got to get to that later. One thing about the solid people compared to the ghost people coming up, they're all dressed in regular clothes and everything like that. But all the solid people, they're either in robes or they're naked. But it's not a sexual type of nakedness that they're all in. They're in it's just like a pure type thing. There's nothing sexual necessarily about it, even though he describes some of the women as being beautiful and stuff. But it's just, there's nothing profane or nasty about them being. It's just, there's no need necessarily for all the clothing and everything. And even the clothing itself is just like a reflection of the love and light and joy that's found in the Lord that they can't comprehend, unfortunately, unless they let go of the ghostly thing. They said, you can come drink freely, come to the mountain, like come to where he is and stuff, but you have to let go of the hell aspect, and that's not what they want to do. C.S. Lewis's character, the narrator, he's kind of advancing around. He notices how heavy it is and everything, how trying to even pick up a leaf, is like, it's too heavy for him to even pick up. He actually falls into a river, and the river's solid to him, and it like bruises his arm and scrapes him up, and because he can't handle the form. But if they choose to stay, they learn how to be solid. But it's just like, again, you're hanging on to stuff, but he keeps going on, and a very interesting conversation. One of the longer conversations in a thing is between two men, a younger and older man. The older man is like what did it say, is Episcopalian? He's some like type of head church guy, some deacon dude. Not deacon dude. A very great intellectual speaker, sermonist, whatever you want to call him. I just run him down as the intellectual. He is so intellectual because he's like, God has given me reason. He's given us gifts and everything in order to have and everything, that everything must be questioned. And even in the questions, there's questions. And the young man's like, yeah, this stuff has nothing to do with anything. It's all hogwash and what you're doing and stuff, even heresy in a lot of cases. Because the guy's like, with my powers of reason and all the facts given to me, I have concluded that, saying the resurrection never happened or it's not real and stuff, which is like, how can you even call yourself a Christian dude and deny the resurrection, which is literally a part of the Christian faith? But he's just so up in himself and so up with the intellectualism, is like, he just like questions and answers, and the boy brings up like, don't you think that, you stay here, you have all the answers to what you want. You'll get all the answers here if you, and he doesn't want to do that. He wants to go back because, what hope is there? He's like, well, what's the good of finding out the answers and everything when speculation and everything else is greater, and it's just such intellectual mumbo jumbo. I was just like, my goodness. But it's philosophical part, whatever. It's just kind of like, this guy is so full of everything. But that's what that one conversation was. The next part was not even a conversation. It's him noticing one other guy that he had on the bus. He's trying to take stuff down to hell to sell, because he wants to sell things he finds in heaven. He sees a bunch of trees of apples. He tries to take a very small apple that he can barely pick up. And he's trying to move, and an angel even appears and is telling him, "Fool, let it go." He won't let it go. He's still trying to hang on to it, leaving, because you can't take things of heaven with you down to hell, and he just won't let he won't listen. He's very hard about that. He's determined to try to sell it. Even if he gets it on the bus, probably not even going to think, because the bus is just there to take him there. I would take him back at any time, but it's just kind of like, you sure you don't want to stay? So, if you're wondering why I have a straw in my mouth, if you're new to me, I had a heat thing that I can't talk normally without biting down on something. If I'm like, so it's somewhat better than how I got it for a little while, but but I have to bite down some, so that's why I use the straws. So, all right, next character, because I have a note thing here, was a hard-bitten conspiracy as I as I write him. This hard-bitten guy, he questions everything. He's like, there's people in charge of everything. Like this place, I just visited just to see what it was, but yeah, it's all the same. They're all run by the same people. There's nothing special about any place. They're all run by the same people. It's like all the people behind this and that. It's all run by the same people. It's all the same inner ring. It's like this guy is like the Illuminati finding dude in every single little thing. And he's just like, yeah, these people, they want to say like, oh, hell is even a bad place. We're in hell. There's nothing, even hell's overhyped. I'm not worried about hell. Everyone's overhyping everything. It's all conspiracy. Like the heaven people, they don't want to help us in hell. Why don't they just bring us up? Which I want to talk about because that isn't correct. He wants to say, oh yeah, why doesn't heaven just come down and rescue those in hell? Let me take you to Exodus. In Exodus, Moses, when they are out of the Red Sea, they passed the Red Sea, they were at Horeb or whatever, and they're trying to talk to, the Lord. He brings them to the mount, and the Lord said, come up and everything and talk. And the people, when they heard the thunderings and lightnings, got so scared, they're like, yeah, Moses, you go up, we'll stay here. And then the Lord's like, okay, from now on, no one can come to the mountain except Moses. But it's like multiple times they say, yeah, you go speak to God, we'll stay here and everything. And you see that so many times throughout Scripture. Anytime an angel appears, all the people get freaked out, or Daniel and everything, they literally fall down to the ground because they're so terrified seeing an angel, and the angel has to tell them, be not afraid. And it's like, this is the scariest moment of my life. But it's like multiple times heaven comes down, and man can't handle it. Man doesn't know how to comprehend everything in the realm, because we go by this, and in the spirit realm we don't even see, we don't understand it. So it's just kind of like, yeah, you expect heaven to come down, yet even if it came down, would you receive it? Because that's the thing, a choice. You choose hell, which something we'll get into later. And you can, the choice in the, of course, fantasy book, but you can stay in heaven, but noticing what you're choosing. You're going down to choose that. So as opposed to choosing one or the other, so it's like, why stay in hell when you can stay up in here in heaven and you can have everything else? Why stay down there? But man wants to be man and think thy will be done or his will be done. That's going to get into that. Before I get to the next important character, one previous character before it, the uncertain lady, I call her. She's seemingly, her and the ghost guy, they kind of talk to each other. She's, wassailing back and forth about whether to stay, whether to go. She's very uncertain. Like the ghost, she's just kind of all over, but there's something drawing her to stay. So the spirit, he calls like a thing, and a whole bunch of unicorns appear, scaring the crap out of her, but would that be enough to convince her to stay? Don't know. And then it gets into the next character, George MacDonald, which was one of that quote thing I read in the beginning. George MacDonald, which is like the other major character of the entire book, a second narrator almost, or he's with the narrator throughout the rest of the book. He's an old Scottish guy. He's, obviously he's solid, but he's talking to Lewis's narrator character, and his character immediately latches onto him and everything and calls him his teacher. But who is George MacDonald? Because I had to go doing research, and I did do some research previously when I read this, but also before making this video. He was a type of preacher back in the 1800s, and Scottish and everything, like how you described him, but he was also he wrote some fantasy stuff, like literally a book called Fantasies and a few other things. I've not read them yet. But I know a lot of people want to say Tolkien was the father of fantasy, where obviously it says his works help inspire people like Tolkien and C.S. Lewis. So it's just kind of like, no, Tolkien is not the right father of fantasy. He's kind of like father of maybe modern fantasy, but he's not the father of fantasy when he was inspired by other things like that, like MacDonald and everything. Even says Lewis Carroll, and it's like, wait, the guy who made Alice in Wonderland? Yeah, Alice in Wonderland. He knew Alice in Wonderland. He knew the guy who made Alice in Wonderland. And Lewis Carroll's not even his real name. It was like Dodgson. I was like, oh, that's his real name? Oh, okay. Lewis Carroll's his pen name. But it was interesting reading a little bit about MacDonald and everything. And it's something kind of discovered in the book, or talked about, I should say, discussed, that's the word I'm looking for, in the book. How, maybe everyone will come, like MacDonald, being a believer and everything, believing, God's love is for everyone. He came out of a Calvinist background and he kind of rejected the predestination. Oh, everyone is predetermined either to live or die just by life. He rejected that thing. It's like, if God's love is for everyone, why would it not only be for some and not for everybody? So he wasn't a universalist, which is like, no, everyone's going to be saved regardless. He kind of believed like eventually everyone will get to that point by their own choice anyway, which is kind of alluded in the book about MacDonald. But even in the book, I guess as a thing C.S. Lewis said, is like, doesn't know if that's true, doesn't know this thing, because this thing is kind of like, who knows if that's the thing or not. And I would disagree about the, everyone's going to come to salvation and everything, because if that's the case, then why did he come to die and save us? If everyone's going to be saved anyway, then there's no point of sacrifice, no point of anything else. It's, there'd be no point of it if everyone's going to come to salvation things anyway. That doesn't make sense to me, because it's written, it's given to man once to die, and then it's the judgment. And I notice in the parable of the Lazarus and the rich man never got out. He never got out of the torment. He stayed down there, and Lazarus was with with Abraham. But the guy's like, hey, I'm being tormented in this flame, save me out of this, and can't. Just cool off my tongue. Can't. We'll send him to my brothers then. They'll repent if they hear him. If they won't repent, if they won't listen to Moses, they won't even listen to one coming back from the dead. But Jesus spoke the most on hell, and that it is a real place, and there, a worm doesn't quench, death is never satisfied, as I thought I heard someone speak about lately. I forgot what it was, but death is never satisfied. It's always eating and everything. How hell is a place of eternal torment. So, unfortunately, people choose. There isn't a day where everyone's going to come to salvation, per se. We'd like that, but again, like what kind of like this book is, at least how I'm interpreting it in a way, people choose it. Like, you can't choose heaven and keep hell, and you can't choose hell and keep any of heaven. What you get is what you get. So, but I'm not saying that to besmirch MacDonald or anything, or C.S. Lewis or anything like that. Not at all. I'm just saying, the influence and everything, and how the book kind of maybe helped Lewis turn from his hardcore atheism, because a lot of people think, that story of him getting saved in a car ride to the zoo is the true story. And it's like, no, that's not exactly how it happened at all. He grew up kind of religious because of his mother's influence, but then when his mother died, and he went and he kind of studied under a teacher, and this teacher was hardcore atheist. Hardcore. Extremely hardcore. And Lewis became extremely hardcore too. Man. But reading the book Fantasies, looking up shortly before this video that MacDonald put out, he read it when he was 16. And then other things, him reading and everything, even though he's always entranced by like fantasy and kind of that Fey realm and everything. C.S. Lewis got into some occult stuff for a little while too. And of course, that was a thing back then. And I think he got into some weird stuff. But through the years, after World War I and everything, and his being a teacher at the universities and everything, him studying everything about myths and legends, and then looking at Christ's life, realizing that, I've studied all these things. I can tell what things are myth and what things aren't. And this thing about Christ isn't myth. This is fact. This actually happened, because he could tell the difference. And it was like a through period of time, and other people talked to him, like Tolkien and a few others, like the I forgot what they're called. They're the Inkhearts, I think that's what it's called. It's a famous little group that they're referred to, but it's other people's influence and everything, including MacDonald with his stories and everything, and other stuff that changed C.S. Lewis from the hardcore atheist guy to being the guy that's like, you can't bring up a Christian conversation or anything without Lewis. So it just shows, the influence of everything, let's say, in a way. So next thing, character, Grumble. This lady kind of grumbling about everything. It's very short. Would she, move away from her grumbleness and actually turn to, being thankful and everything? Don't know. The artist. The artist was a guy. He talked to another kid, someone else he kind of knew, someone like a famous painter. He got so caught up in trying to defend the things of art that he forgot what the art was for. Like in the beginning, he painted because he wanted to paint the beauty and everything of what he was seeing, the art. He was enjoying the moment of what he's seeing, and he wanted to show all that through everything. But when he was finding out, wait, no, like I can't paint anything up here. Why can't I paint anything up here? Everything must be captured and everything's like, why aren't you just enjoying what you're seeing and living in it? You don't need to paint it anymore. It's here. You're seeing the light. You're seeing how it all works. You don't have to imagine it or anything. It's here before you. And he couldn't handle that, along with all this other art stuff of like, he got more into what, I don't know, the art lines and everything else, and holding on to what, it's kind of hard to explain. I'm learning to draw in some ways, but him learning about, trying to put it in a way, I guess more about the function of art as opposed to just enjoying the art itself. Like, hey, that's a nice drawing. I'm glad I drawn it. As opposed to being overrated, like everything must be, I don't know, it's sad. All these characters are sad. But, I'll just move on. I was trying to come up with more stuff to say about him, but I didn't know what. The next one, controlling woman. Oh boy. I want to call her henpeck, but she's not even henpeck. She's controlling. There's this two people, one, they obviously know each other, but this woman was very controlling of her husband. She wanted to have everything her own way. She ruined his life in a lot of ways. Like, you can't have your friends that you want to have because they're not helping your social standing. I'm putting on all this. I'm doing that. I'm doing this. I spent hours putting flowers to make sure the house looked just beautiful enough to give us a social standing and everything. He can't have his own way. It's not good for him. He doesn't know what he's doing. I know what's best for him. And she was just sad because she just kept talking and talking and talking. And she was just so controlling, but it's like she was so mad, like, he can't have his way given to me. I know what to do for him, and yet she can comprehend. It's like, wait, you're trying to do these. You say he can't have his way, but you can't have your way because you want to control him and do everything with him. You say you love him, but you're not really loving him because you're. It's a very sad thing. There's a lot of stuff in this book about love, which the next few are going to talk about, but a lot of different things talking about love and what you love, what you care for, what you hold on to, again, choosing heaven or hell. And the next two, actually, you have the mother talking with, I guess, her brother, but she wants to see her son again. She only wants her son, and completely forgetting her husband and daughter and everyone else and everything. She only wants her son. Her son's become like, she says, her son's a world to me. It's mine. And he's like, he's not your son anymore. He's here with us. You can see him if you want to stay and everything. She's just like, no, it's my son. I don't believe in a God that is going to take away my son. And just like, it had to be taken because for his good, because I guess whatever medical condition he had. But you're not allowing yourself. It's not because you're loving him too much. You're loving him too little. You're not letting it go, and you're not loving yourself. And she's like, the mother's love is the most purest, holiest love there is. And it's like, no, it's not the case. If that's the case, why don't you just let go of everything to come see him? She didn't want to have anything else. Transfixed on, I guess, grief. But there was another thing of the next guy, because I didn't realize it, because McDonald and Lewis, they're looking at all these different people, and I want to say Lewis, but it's narrator, but they look at this other person. This guy has like this little lizard. Now it's supposed to be a sensuality type thing, something he's holding on to. I don't know. I will say I don't know exactly what it is, but an angel comes and says, "Shall I kill it?" The guy's like, "No, I don't want you to kill it." I mean, yeah, he's a bother, but don't kill him or anything. He's like, "I can kill it for you if you want me to. Let me kill it." I mean, if you want to kill it, then you should have killed it. I can't kill it without your permission. You have to tell me you want me to do it. Let me kill it. Because the little lizard was kind of controlling him or anything. And I thought, is it kind of like a demon holding on to him? But it might be some sort of addiction or something that he has. That's not, I'll say that's one part that's unclear. But he kills the lizard. But because he was able to let go of this issue, he becomes solid. And the lizard becomes a horse, a big stallion, the beautiful stallion he's ever seen. And he rides the stallion all the way up to the mountains. And it's just kind of like, what, inanimate affection in a wrong way? Is like, you have the mother who wouldn't let go of her love for the son, but this guy was able to let go of whatever it was he was holding on to. And you see what happens when he was able to let go and let the healing happen, even though it's going to kill me to let it go. It's like, it's not going to kill you. It's going to hurt, but it's not going to kill you. And yeah, it hurt him, but what happened? He was able to become whole and go. Now, for me, the last little character is, I don't know, the most interesting. Starts off with like a parade around a lady. Because they talk about, fame and stuff throughout the book. But this lady is, all these children are cheering for her and everything. And I kind of get it that because of how she was and everything in her life, she was just somebody that nobody ever knew, basically. But because of how she acted maybe in life, the ripple effects of her life affected so many other people. Because it's like, I remember this lady did this for me and everything. She brought me to Christ. And that is what helped all these other people get to know the Lord and everything like that. Maybe that's why she's famous. But it described her as being, one, very beautiful. But he couldn't tell if she was naked or clothed, because if she was naked, their clothes were just so sheer that you could see everything with a robe. But at the same time, she looked robed because the joy and the light and love was just like covering her and everything. But she went up and talked to this, like, two men, you can say in a way. One, a very tall guy, kind of lean or something, at least how I'm imagining him. And you have this little dwarf dude holding on, looks like a child, holding on with like these handcuffs or rope onto the guy. He's just like very shrunken, kind of like a turtle. I think he's kind of like this. Barely looking up. Just kind of like that. And she doesn't even acknowledge the tall guy. She's talking straight to the little one. The little guy, the dwarf guy. She calls him Frank, because that's his name. She asks his forgiveness and everything, because it seemed like it was her husband. But only the tall guy talks. And Lewis makes note that, it's like the tragedy, and he's acting like an actor and everything. Like, page 122 in this book, but I'll just keep reading from here. I looked properly at the dwarf for the first time now, or perhaps when he received her kiss, he became a little more visible, because she's only talking to him, she's not talking to this other thing. One coming out sort of face he must have when he was a man, a little oval freckled face with a weak chin and a tiny wisp of unsuccessful mustache. He gave her a glance, not a full look. He was watching the tragedian, the actor, thespian, whatever you want to call it, out of the corner of his eyes. Then he gave a jerk to the chain, and it was the tragedian, not he, who answered the lady. There, since he's an actor, overzealous in this, I think is what he would sound like. We'll say no more about it. We all make mistakes. With the words, there came over his features a ghastly connotation, which I think was meant for an indulgently playful smile. We'll say no more, he continued. It's not myself I'm thinking about, it is you. There's been you continually on my mind all these years, the thought of you, you here alone, breaking your heart about me. But now, said the lady to the dwarf, you can set all that aside. Never think like that again. It's all over. She's only focused on him. Because the guy he's so in a pity party thing, but maybe so anxiety filled or something that never think he was good enough or something, but he would pretend to be something that he was not, but she could see past what he was acting like. Being married to him and really did seemingly love him, she could see past his act and like, I know what you really are. You don't need to hide. You can come out of the shell. Yeah, I use that turtle thing. You can come out of your shell. You don't need to hide. Be, I love you and everything. And he just want to put on this pity party act, and he was starting to grow up out of it. And he describes the dwarf as suddenly kind of getting a little bit taller, like as a full-size man again. But then when he was so close, he wanted to shrink back again, and he was like, nope, 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 nope. And he would keep getting smaller and smaller, like literally in size, like smaller and smaller, to the point where he's just hanging on the chain, and he's almost microscopic. You don't even see him on the chain anymore, but he's still there until he's like completely in the tragedy end. And then when she no longer sees him, she kind of looks up at him and was like, where is Frank? I don't know who you are. I know where Frank is. Where is Frank? And he just doesn't want to even acknowledge it, that he's so caught up in the pity, and he leaves. Or how does he leave again? I forgot how he left. Where is he? Struggle against the terrible joy. I mean, it goes on in a couple chapters about how this is. And it says he vanished. That's this thing. Some people go back to the buses, but others, they just vanish. Like the controlling woman, she turns up like into a candle and just goes whisks like in a thing of smoke, because she was just so bitter and wanted to just control everything. And then the lady, she just kind of goes back to the singing and everything, how that was, because the fullness of the joy. That's the thing about the solid people. They hang on to the fullness and everything that the Lord has given them, that they're full of joy and who he is and what he's brought to them now, that they don't need anything else. They don't need the food. They don't need what they call, quote unquote, love on earth, because it was not enough. It wasn't sufficient enough. Now here is what love is. But they wanted to keep hanging on to things of hell, what they thought was real, or just what they want to choose. So, of course, Lewis says like, oh, I just made it like all a dream and everything like that to add to the fantasy element, which is fine. But that's generally the book. It goes in a lot of different stuff, kind of like how I spoke, but just talking about the differences between hell and heaven in some ways, and this type of idea. How people just choose, they have the choice to stay there. And you see what they choose, that they'd rather stay in hell where things comfortable, not this and that, and think it's better, or just don't want to let go or do the requirements that it takes to go into the heaven. I mean, you have the guy with the lizard who gets to, maybe the woman who was uncertain, but all the rest, they willingly go back. And there may not be necessarily an opportunity for them to return again. They might be able to, but I don't know. It's just, the bus always runs and it's always there available for anyone who wants to get on and who wants to stay, but they don't want to choose to. But I don't know. As far as the book, easy to read. It's basically easy to read. You may understand like, what's going on? But it's easy to read-ish, and you can say and everything. There's a lot of terms and people that are talked about that are just like who's Kearns? What is this tragedies thing and stuff that are written for that time, that probably when Lewis wrote these books that were more into the scope of public accessibility of that time and things that they talked about compared to today, where we're like, wait, what is this thing he's talking about? Who's Kearns? Like, I have no clue who Kearns is. I didn't know who George MacDonald was before because he was a major character in this book. I went and read what it was about him before, and I read about him again before this video to find out, like, who is MacDonald? Why is he influential to Lewis? And as far as writing and everything. So, but there's so much different references and everything. Again, fantasy book, which is interesting. It's fun. But do highly recommend. So probably the next C.S. Lewis book I want to get is Surprised by Joy. I want to read about that one. Maybe I can get it this week. We'll see. But have you read this book? Tell me what you think about it. I don't know. I mean, it's really a great read, a great little intellectual thing to read about. Okay, study about this, study about that, and get into the history of things. What do you think about this and that, and how the angels appear, how the solid people appeared, how the ghosts appeared, what does it mean for this and that? Like, I still don't necessarily understand the lizard aspect per se. Maybe I should probably do more research probably into that, maybe what it means. Because I will say that is a little confusing to me. It's like, who is the lizard? I guess it's some sensual thing he's hanging on to that's inordinate affection, that using it wrong, kind of. So, but I do want to make some drawings. Like the thing with the lady and the tragedy, and the dwarf, I want to draw kind of something. I don't know how it's going to come out, but I want to draw something. But I do think this would be a good, because I think of things in like filmmaking terms. That's just how I am. Thing is, in filmmaking, you could make something film-wise of this. I'm sure people have, and there has, but of course people clove and they put it like in thing and stuff. But that's why I think, animation would be the better aspect of this. Yes, if you do a full-on thing with this, but in filmmaking, you can make someone look translucent in a way. I think they're just overlapping the video, and the guy kind of shows there, kind of not. But I don't know if I'm very uncomfortable showing people actually nude on screen. I don't actually ever want to show someone nude on screen. But drawing-wise, to kind of capture what this is about and everything, wouldn't be sexual in nature about how all the characters look, even though they're nude. But not all of them are nude, but probably drawing like a illustration type thing would be the best way. Like a cartoon would be the best way to adapt the book. I mean, you could do stop motion in a way. That'd be interesting. But I think drawing-wise would be the better way, because you could show how they're, translucent versus the solid people and the gold shining light and love, how that all looks, and seeing the dwarf guy getting smaller and smaller, sadly, hanging on to that chain, the security blanket act. It just, it seemed like cartoon would be the better way to show it, to try to capture a lot of these things. So yeah, even though it's a cartoon, not all cartoons are for kids, but it'd be an interesting adaptation for sure. I don't know. Either way, have you read the book? Tell me what you think about the book. I know this has been a long video, but I'm really excited. I like talking about the book. I like talking about different stuff and everything. So, I don't know. Tell me what you think. What else should I read next? I want to try to read Surprised by Joy. But I'll see you in the next one and everything, people. Goodbye.